Good Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Conversations Daily News. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Of course, you have your news headlines coming up on this first hump day of October. We also have a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. And in today's Entertainment Spotlight, we really have news you can use. Bob O'Connor, the Vice President of Aetna Medicare, joins me to talk about Medicare open enrollment this year. You don't want to miss that. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversations Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Wednesday headlines. In international news, the Associated Press says retreating Russians leave their comrades' bodies behind. Russian troops abandoned a key Ukrainian city so rapidly that they left the bodies of their comrades in the streets, offering more evidence Tuesday of Moscow's latest military defeat as it struggles to hang on to 4 regions of Ukraine that it illegally annexed last week. Meanwhile, Russia's upper house of parliament rubber-stamped the annexations following referendums that Ukraine and its Western allies have dismissed as fraudulent. Responding to the move, the Ukrainian President Zelensky formally ruled out talks with Russia, declaring that negotiations with Russian President Putin are impossible after the decision to take over the regions. The Kremlin replied by saying that it will wait for Ukraine to agree to sit down for talks, noting that it may not happen until a new Ukrainian president takes office. We will wait for the incumbent president to change his position or wait for a future Ukrainian president who would revise his stand in the interest of the Ukrainian people, the Kremlin spokesperson said. The picture on the ground underscored the disarray Putin faces amid the Ukrainian advances and attempts to establish new Russian borders. Over the weekend, Russian troops pulled back from Lyman, a strategic eastern town that the Russians had used as logistics and transport hub to avoid being encircled by Ukrainian forces. The town's liberation gave Ukraine an important vantage point for pressing its offensive deeper into Russian-held territories. 2 days later, an Associated Press team reported from Lyman saw at least 18 bodies of Russian soldiers still on the ground. The Ukrainian military appeared to have collected the bodies of their comrades after fierce battles for control of the town, but they did not immediately remove those of the Russians. We fight for our land, for our children, so that our people can live better, but all this comes at a very high price, said a Ukrainian soldier. Lyman residents emerged from basements where they had hidden during the battle and built bonfires for cooking. The city has no water, electricity, or gas since May. Residential buildings were burned. A few people emerged on bicycles. Russian forces launched more military strikes at Ukrainian cities on Tuesday as Kyiv presses counteroffensives in the east and the south. Several missiles hit Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, damaging infrastructure and causing power cuts. In national news, judge tosses charges against 7 people in Flint water crisis. A Michigan judge threw out felony charges Tuesday against 7 people in the Flint water scandal, including 2 former state health officials blamed for deaths from Legionnaire's disease. The dismissal was significant but not a complete surprise after the Michigan Supreme Court in June unanimously said a different judge acting as a one-person grand jury had no authority to issue indictments. Judge Elizabeth Kelly rejected efforts by the Attorney General's office to just send the cases to Flint's district court and turn them into criminal complaints, a typical path to filing felony charges in Michigan. It was a last-gasp effort to keep things afloat. In more national news, Trump asked Supreme Court to intervene in Mar-a-Lago dispute. Lawyers for former President Donald Trump asked the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday to step into the legal fight over the classified documents seized during an FBI investigation of his Florida estate, escalating a dispute over the powers of an independent arbiter appointed to inspect the records. The Trump team asked the justices to overturn a lower court ruling and allow the arbiter, called a special master, to review the roughly 100 documents with classification markings that were taken in the August 8th search of Mar-a-Lago. A 3-judge panel from the Atlanta-based U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit last month limited the special master's review to the much larger tranche of non-classified documents. The judges included 2 Trump appointees sided with the Justice Department, which had argued there was no legal basis for the special master to conduct his own review of the classified records. In entertainment news, Loretta Lynn, a coal miner's daughter and country queen, has died. Loretta Lynn, the Kentucky coal miner's daughter, whose frank songs about life and love as a woman in Appalachia pulled her out of poverty and made her a pillar of country music, has died. She was 90 years old. In a statement provided to the Associated Press, Lynn's family said she died Tuesday at her home in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. Our precious mom, Loretta Lynn, passed away peacefully this morning, October the 4th, in her sleep at home in her beloved ranch in Hurricane Mills, the family said in the statement. They asked for privacy as they grieve and said a memorial will be announced later. Her biggest hits came in the 1960s and 1970s, including Coal Miner's Daughter, You Ain't Woman Enough, Don't Come Home A-Drinkin', and You're Looking at Country. And finally, in business news, stocks rise in extended rally, clawing back more ground. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed more than 800 points, and the S&P 500 had its best day in more than 2 years on Tuesday, as the market clawed back more of the ground it lost in a miserable several weeks on Wall Street. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's on time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. Good Wednesday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Words I Choose to Live By. The enemy will go out of his way to block you from your blessings, take the stumbling blocks, and use them as stepping stones for your good. If you can do that through every dark valley, you will be able to see the light. Have a great Wednesday. Bob O'Connor of Aetna Medicare is featured in today's Entertainment Spotlight. We're here on Conversation Daily News. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with the Entertainment Spotlight. Bob O'Connor, the Vice President of Aetna Medicare, joined me on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about this year's Medicare annual enrollment period. Here's a bit of our conversation. What should seniors in particular, Bob, know about this year's enrollment period for Medicare?
Yeah, so I think there's some important changes for this year that people should be thinking about. The first step is to take a look and understand what you have right now. What is your current premium? What are your current copays? What's your current network? And then as you look at new opportunities, you think about what doctors you might go see, what hospitals you might see, and also what your prescription drugs that you're on. Those change a lot year over year. In fact, at Aetna, we took nearly 300 commonly used medications, and we dropped the copays on them. Went from $100 or $45 down to $0, or just a couple of dollars. These different drug lists change every year, and that's a big deal because nearly 80% of seniors are on 2 or more medications.
Bob, you bring up a really good point, and I've been going through this with my mother, and that is the fact that a lot of times people will say, well, I already have coverage, why do I need to look? But as you mentioned, things definitely do change. So given that fact, and the fact, of course, as I mentioned in the intro, the cost of things, of course, are definitely going up. Is that one of the main reasons why that seniors should make sure they're getting the most out of the plans that they have?
Yeah, it really is. Particularly if you've been on the same plan for a few years, you really owe it to yourself to check out what might be there. I was talking to an agent over the weekend, and he was meeting with a couple, and they were on a kind of a plan that they'd been around for a while. They were paying hundreds of dollars a monthly premium and not really getting a lot of extra stuff. And between the extra things that were covered and the savings in the premium, he was saving that whole household nearly $1,000. And so, everybody's situation's different. Everybody's savings is different. But, who couldn't use an extra $1,000 a month?
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning into this edition of Conversations Daily News. We'll be back to you guys on tomorrow with more news, message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and, of course, your Entertainment Spotlight. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Daily News today. Now let's go make it a great one.